Well, I asked, where's the beef? Let's call this for what this is. Oh my God! They are so hopelessly woke. How dare you? That is the intellectual capital of the left today. Give me a break. You are now watching the Daily Roundup. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Daily Roundup on this, a Thursday, February 23rd, 2023. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, well, let me tell you a little bit about my co-host. Folks, do you know that today is National Dog Biscuit Day? And it really is a dog-eat-dog world out there. And like me, my co-host is wearing milk-bone underwear. She is the she-devil with a sword. She is the Khaleesi of Northern Alberta. She is Sheila Gunn-Reid. How you doing out there, Sheila?
Oh, David, I'm doing great. What list are you looking from? Do you go to nationaltoday.com? That's where I go to get my list. And today is, there's a bunch of other things other than whatever you said. Was it National Milk-Bone Day?
No, National Dog Biscuit Day.
Dog Biscuit Day. There's a bunch, like National Curling is Cool Day. I don't know if you saw on Blacklocks this morning, but I think a school board is in big trouble because they let people curl without helmets. And I'm like, they're making people curl with helmets. Now, I remember when you could smoke and drink at the curling rink on the ice sheet. Now
while you're curling.
Oh, that was like the Olympians. The curling Olympians in the 80s are like having a dart at the end of the ice sheet. Now they're making you wear a helmet. There's another great one today, Diesel Engine Day.
Oh.
Yes. And another one that's probably canceled forever. Defender of the Fatherland Day. Join us in honoring the bravery of Russia's defenders, its honor and its rich traditions. I can't even believe they allowed that one on the list still.
Well, we're a day away from the first anniversary of the Russian incursion into Ukraine, Sheila, so I can't imagine that's a popular holiday in certain circles. But, getting back to this helmet, does that not say everything about the bubble-wrapped nanny state society in which we live? I think it was about a decade ago, taking the kid to hockey, and I sat there and I went, am I seeing things? Because the Zamboni driver was wearing a hockey helmet. Like really? I mean, first of all, there's no, hockey etiquette. You can't step on the ice until the Zamboni leaves, so nobody's shooting pucks. And really, how many Zamboni drivers have fallen off the Zamboni or fell while getting onto the Zamboni and cracked their skull open? This is, I guess, a lawyer advising the, Parks and Rec Association to, we might be liable if Jimmy slips. And suddenly everybody is wearing helmets. If you are a Zamboni driver out there, I shouldn't say Zamboni, right, Sheila? Because Zamboni is a trade name, and it's an American company. Olympia is the Canadian ice resurfacer. I remember Don Cherry always going on about that. So if you're driving in an Olympia or a Zamboni, I don't think there are any other brands, but I stand to be educated. Have you ever suffered a head injury while resurfacing the ice? Because I think the odds of that happening, Sheila, would make even the most reckless gambler cringe.
Yeah, but this is the litigious society in which we live right now. I'm not being crazy about that helmetless curling story. Like, I've never seen a helmet at the curling rink. And for a long time, that used to be the only place to get a drink around here. Helmetless curling in court. I'm ashamed to say that this is Alberta. A judge has ordered a local school district and a curling club to face civil trial for failing to meet a required standard of care by allowing children to hit the ice without a helmet. The ice was slippery. Yeah, that's curling. That's the point. And it could cause students to fall and become injured. That risk was obvious. Now, let me tell you about the golden age of curling. Efron's behind the board today. Throw up that tweet from CBC's As It Happens, please. This is curling how I knew it. When Team Canada was curling on the, not just waiting at the end of the ice sheet, but on the ice at the end with it. See that? That's a Rothman's hanging out of that guy's mouth.
That's amazing.
Team Canada. That's Team Canada in the 70s, smoking and curling at the same time. Look at that. That's the golden age of curling. And curling is like bowling. Doesn't matter your fitness level, really. It's just all about form. And if you can just, that's it. You don't need to be a bodybuilder. You don't need to, it might even work better with center of balance or center of gravity, to have a little bit of a beer gut. Curling, bowling, those are the sports for people like us, David.
But Sheila, I would argue that's the problem with curling. And let me explain. What I want to see to make curling more extreme, I want to see boards on the ice surface. I want to see body contact, and I want to see a goalie that you got to get that rock past. Now, that would be my kind of curling, okay? You're kind of like incorporating, I don't know, the rules of rollerball, the futuristic sport. Yeah, let's put a guy on a motorcycle there, too. Now, that's a sport I'm tuning into. That's a pay-per-view for me.
Let's not mess with a good thing. The way the nannies are messing with a good thing, let's not jazz it up. Let's not turn this into the American Gladiators gauntlet. And I think I just dated myself by using that reference. It doesn't need to be the Royal Rumble. Let them smoke. Let them drink on the ice sheet. That's the Canadian way. This is a prairie sport, and it's largely won by people from the prairies. We lead the country because, again, it's a lot in these small towns, like the only place to get a drink. So it's the social club. You're down there curling. It's fun. It's where we're at our best. Let's leave it alone.
Would you suggest I get into curling, Sheila? Because where I live in Richmond Hill, I am literally a 3-minute walk away from the Richmond Hill Curling Club. And I got to admit, I've never curled, but that's the good thing of this sport. I take it you're never too old to start, right?
Right, yeah. No, and you've got those artificial hips. So you're like the bionic man on the ice.
How dare you? Well, Sheila, normally you read out the housekeeping rules. Not that we're dictators here in terms of putting rules down. It's because certain Silicon Valley tech giants insist, they're all down with free speech, but not all free speech. So Sheila will explain all, folks.
Right. And by the way, I don't even smoke. I've never even had a cigarette in my entire life.
Me neither.
Let the curlers smoke. Obviously, if you can win a world championship with the dart hanging out of your mouth, let them smoke. Anyways.
Sheila, I will say this. I'm like you. I've never had a cigarette in my lifetime. But there's a whole bunch of things I want to do if I know for sure, like I've got 2 weeks to live. And that's when I'll start smoking, just to find out if it's regrettable all these decades I didn't know what I was missing. But I'll wait until I got 1 foot in the crypt.
I can't believe of all the things you want to do in the world when the time's running out on you.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? Give me some Demoriers. What the heck? Okay, anyways, this is what we're doing today. This is Rebel News Daily Roundup. I really like the new little graphic, by the way. It looks great, studio team, wherein David Menzies and I talk about the news of the day, largely unscripted. So we may not be for everybody, but the people who like us, they like us a lot. It's a great opportunity for David and I to interact with each other because I'm far away from him, way out here in God's country in Alberta. But it also gives us a chance to interact directly with our viewers. We stream on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, Getter, and Twitter. Is that right? I think so.
I believe so. Yep.
Yes. Okay, perfect. And but as I alluded to, you can interact with us on Rumble and Odyssey by leaving us a paid chat, because we will never take any money from Justin Trudeau, so we rely on the support of our viewers at home. And so you can give us a little something and we'll give you a little something. So we'll read your paid chat on air, and sometimes it's a question, sometimes it's a story idea, sometimes it's just a comment, but it's your chance to take the show in your own direction. So I think that's everything, David. If you want to start us off with our first topic, which I didn't actually look at quite yet.
Sure. Let's talk about what is becoming, with every passing year, more and more of a national disgrace. I guess it dates back to 2017 when Justin Trudeau, taking a jab at then President Donald Trump, put out the infamous Welcome to Canada hashtag. And of course, I'm talking about Roxham Road, an irregular border crossing. You know what, Sheila, when I think of irregular, I think about socks I get on a discount because there's something wrong with the pattern. This is illegal.
I think about Metamucil. Metamucil, that's what they use for that's right. The euphemism they use for needing that.
Yeah, I'm not regular. I need some kind of thing to, well, let's not go there. And of course, Pierre Poilievre, recognizing that the very basis of a nation having sovereignty is to control its borders. Ooh, that's radical far-right thinking, isn't it, Sheila? So let's see what Trudeau had to say when he was calling out Pierre Poilievre for making the uber reasonable suggestion that, you know what we need at Roxham Road? Not Royal Canadian Mounted Police acting as bellhops, but a wall.
Can be closed without renegotiating the safe third country agreement. Is that the case? Can it just be closed without that discussion with the United States?
Could somebody put up barricades and a big wall? Yes, if Pierre Poilievre wants to build a wall at Roxham Road, someone could do that. The problem is we have 6,000 kilometers worth of undefended shared border with the United States. And as we saw with tragedies at Emerson, as we've seen in challenges elsewhere across the country, people will choose to cross elsewhere. The only way to effectively shut down not just Roxham Road, but the entire border to these irregular crossings is to renegotiate the Safe Third Country Agreement, which is serious work that we are doing as a government right now. So people can, toss out simplistic solutions. That's their right. But if someone wants to seriously solve the problem, you're going to have to roll up your sleeves and do the work as we are.
Oh, Sheila, pardon me?
Do what work? Like, what work is he doing on this issue? He sent a tweet in 2017 wherein you can trace directly to the surge in migrants at the border. Like, you can literally plot it on a graph. It's this many are coming, and then the tweet comes, and then on the graph it goes straight up. It's directly attributed to him. What work is he doing on this? And what does he need to renegotiate? He doesn't need to renegotiate anything. He just needs to enforce the laws that are there. The Safe Third Country Agreement says that if you are filing for asylum, you have to do it in the first safe country that you get to. That's the United States. If you are coming from Honduras and you end up in the United States, that's where you're supposed to claim asylum. You're not supposed to country shop, which is what's happening here. And you're not supposed to pass through. And so they're supposed to be turned away at the border. And you're not allowed to make an asylum claim at an irregular border crossing. You have to do it at a conventional, old-fashioned, legal point of entry. They're not doing that. Please just turn them away. And by the way, Justin Trudeau says walls don't work, but I'm reliably informed that he thinks they do because he put up a hell of a lot of fences and walls around the nation's capital to keep regular old law-abiding Canadians out. And these are people who are citizens of their own country. They couldn't go into their own capital because Justin Trudeau used fences and walls and barricades. So he knows they work. He just doesn't want to use them to prevent lawbreakers from getting into the country.
And also, Sheila, let's look at the timeline. As I said, this was a direct poke in the eye at then President Donald Trump when Trudeau put out that tweet, hashtag Welcome to Canada. But there's been regime change south of the border. It's been Biden in office since after the 2020 election because the narrative was migrants in America were at risk under mean orange man. He might do something. But that boogeyman is now gone. It's gone, a couple of years gone now. So that doesn't exist. I want to also talk about the safe third country agreement, Sheila. who in blue hell drafted that? The idea that you would have a loophole the size of the galaxy, which says, as long as you don't go to a regular border crossing, like, say, the Peace Bridge or what have you, as long as you go somewhere else in, what is our border in total length with the U.S.? I think it's something like 6,000 kilometers.
Right.
Yeah, if you go in there, then the rules change. Why was that a stipulation in the first part, Sheila? It looks like the drafters of this agreement wanted it to fail.
Well, and look at Justin Trudeau's excuse. Well, since there's 6,000 kilometers, we can't do anything about this one point of entry where all the crossings are happening because there are two parallel roads that run adjacent to each other. And what's happening is they're coming up from the United States, getting off, walking through the ditch, and then hitting the other side. There's nothing we can do because there are 6,000 other kilometers of undefended border. That's insane. That's the dumbest excuse that I think Justin Trudeau could have come up with for failing to deal with this. And by the way, the death that happened at Emerson happened while Roxham Road was wide open. So closing it up is not going to prevent people from dying elsewhere. It just won't. What caused people to die in the cold in Emerson was Justin Trudeau's stupid tweet. That's what did it.
And also, yes, I'm not happy about anyone dying, especially in such a horrific way. But the fact is, you are breaking the law. That family knew they were breaking the law, which you should not do, especially if you're seeking citizenship in the country that's going to harbor you. And like you said, it's almost as though Justin Trudeau, Sheila, is an accomplice. He was encouraging this. And then after he encourages it, he goes, look at the tragedies, such as what happened in Emerson, Manitoba. No. You goaded people on to come here. You've got blood on your hands, Mr. Prime Minister, for that family that perished. And Sheila, this safe third country agreement, they've been talking for years now. Now, I know the bureaucracy moves at a speed of molasses going uphill in wintertime. But Sheila, until, clearly it's going to continue to be negotiated on for years. And I don't think there's any willingness in the United States to change it, by the way. They're happy, it would seem, to offload their refugee problem. Mayor Adams in New York even buying bus tickets for these illegal aliens. So in the meantime, Mr. Trudeau, why don't we erect a wall until we get this hammered out? And he met with the Carpenters Union in Tuesday. Lincoln Jay and I went out to Vaughan to cover that. And it's a blue-collar event, Sheila, because the first thing Trudeau does when he jumps out of his SUV, a full-size Chevy Suburban, which had the engine running for all 90 minutes. Because God forbid blackface gets into a vehicle that's less than room temperature. But it's a blue-collar event because he takes off his jacket, he loosens his tie, and he puts his shirt sleeves up. Like, I'm down with the blue-collar brothers and sisters. We're just a costume. Yeah, you know what, Justin? That was your chance to do a huge make-work project, unlike building some bridge to nowhere. Get those carpenters into their trucks and vans, get them to the border, and start building that wall. That would be a project I would endorse, Sheila.
Yeah, you know what? We don't even have to do that. Who are those people that they called to put up that ready-made fence in Ottawa? Find that company.
Yes.
Call them. Tell them put one up at Roxham Road. And, there's some irony in all of this that Mayor Adams in New York, he's a sanctuary city.
Yeah.
But when the migrants come, he buses them back out the other side. And I'm old enough to remember him complaining that what Greg Abbott was doing in Texas, buying bus tickets and sending them to New York, he said that was cruel. You're being cruel to the migrants, sending them up here. But then Eric Adams is like, oh, you want to go to Canada? Can I send you to Canada? Here's a ticket. Get out of here. So Adams is just that's what he wanted. Now someone is making him try to live up to his progressive morals, and he just can't do it. But also, neither is Montreal. Montreal, I think, is a sanctuary city also, and they're being inundated by migrants, and they're shipping them to Cornwall, Ontario, who I don't think they are a sanctuary city. But this is, the sanctuary city mayors, they love migrants until the migrants come, and then they're just like, ooh, icky, gross, no, don't like them.
Yeah, and it's funny, Sheila, isn't it? Thanks to our beloved colleagues Alexa and Guillaume, we know precisely what the fee is for a Greyhound bus ticket from New York City to Plattsburgh. It's $66. We know that because once the illegal aliens got into Canada, suddenly they don't need their bus ticket, and they just, they litter. And I know it's a little thing, but it's a big thing too. You're illegally getting into our country, and then the first thing you do is break another law. You litter. You can't keep that bus ticket in your pocket. You just throw your trash on the ground as though Roxham Road is a waste disposal facility. And that's how we knew how much they were paying, and that we knew they were coming from New York City to Plattsburgh. And I know also there is a cottage industry in Plattsburgh, consultants, taxis, you name it.
The taxis David, the taxis say Roxham Road on the side. Yeah. So if you get off the airport, get off the plane at the airport, or get off the bus at the bus station, you just look for the taxi that says Roxham Road, and it takes you to Roxham Road. And if this were happening on the southern border of the United States, these people would be called coyotes. They're
100%, Sheila. And this is a laughing stock.
Yeah.
And by the way, you see, this is the end of Roxham Road on the Canadian side. There's that temporary, probably now full-time RCMP detachment there. And it's funny, the last time I went there to do reporting, as you can see, you're pretty much in the middle of nowhere. When I pulled over my car, I was sternly informed by the RCMP that I was in a no stopping zone, which meant I had to, and I'm not complaining about this, I had to drive about 2 kilometers away, find legal parking, and then walk back with my equipment. But I mean, how selective is the law enforcement? You've got illegal aliens coming in, 39,000 last year alone, and this Dudley Do-Right is concerned about my car on an abandoned road, pretty much. The only traffic you see are the periodic buses that come to pick up the migrants and put them in a hotel where they get 3 squares a day. Unbelievable.
Well, and let's go back to Justin Trudeau for a second, because it just occurred to me. Justin Trudeau did not say, hey, Joe Biden, you got to do something about the migrants crossing the southern border because they're ending up in Canada and they're putting undue strain on our system here. They're driving up the cost of housing, and they're displacing our homeless people in our homeless shelters. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say anything to Eric Adams saying, hey, can you quit buying $60 bus tickets for migrants you invited to your city by virtue of being a sanctuary city? He doesn't say that. He directs his ire at Pierre Poilievre, who is saying, we are enabling a crime here of human trafficking by not dealing with this one single border crossing, where the majority of these border crossings happen, where I think it's 82% of people who cross there end up in accommodations, which is Canadian taxpayer funded hotels, which is a burden on the Canadian taxpayer who've done nothing wrong here. That's who Justin Trudeau directs his ire to, at Pierre Poilievre, who's offering a solution on behalf of Canadians, and not the people who, along with Justin Trudeau, continue to cause this problem to balloon.
You're so right, Sheila. And also the comparison to Donald Trump. And I'm thinking, and the downside is, are
you threatening me with a good time?
You're a president in his term, inflation was not a thing, energy independence, record unemployment levels, interest rates far lower. The world was a far safer place. I want a Donald Trump. My dearest wish would be to Pierre Poilievre to be Canada's version of Donald Trump. So I can't understand that being a complaint. You know what it reminds me of, Sheila? I know you're a big SCTV fan. You remember the Christmas special, Count Floyd's Have Yourself a Scary Little Christmas? And at one point, Catherine O'Hara, playing Lucille Ball, starts crying. And Count Floyd says, "Lucy, what's wrong?" And she goes, the boy from Deliverance scared me. And Count Floyd is going, that's good, because his ongoing narrative is trying to book scary movies that are complete duds. They all stink, right? So I'm thinking, calling Poilievre Canada's Trump, I'm down with that, Mr. Prime Minister.
Yeah. Like peace broke out in the Middle East while Trump was in charge. We're talking about it like it's a bad thing. Now, on the flip side, this is interesting to me. We have this article here in the New York Post. We've got Border Patrol agents complaining. Now, again, careful what you wish for, Eric Adams, because you just might get it. Border Patrol in the United States is upset because we've got migrants sneaking into the United States from Canada. Apparently, Mexican migrants don't appreciate us being a frozen hellscape up here. Some provinces more so than others. So what's happening is they're flying from Mexico to Canada, which is an affordable flight because, this is one of our vacation top spots. So it's kind of an affordable flight. Then they get here and you don't really need a visa. I guess they're complaining about the visa rules that say it allows the migrants to travel basically visa-free from Mexico to Canada. So they travel to Canada, basically no visa whatsoever, and then they get to Canada and then they hoof it across the border, apparently in some very deep snow, shocking to them. And they're headed to New York. And I'm thinking, you know what, Eric Adams? You get what you get. You get what you get. Don't complain to me. It's falling on deaf ears.
So, Sheila, I think what you're suggesting, too, is that in addition to being illegal aliens, a lot of these people, or maybe all of them, they dropped out of geography class because the idea that we are a fun in the sun utopia. My friend Brian, just on Sunday, he got back from a week in Puerto Vallarta. Every day, 28 degrees Celsius.
Oh, I know.
Sunny, a light breeze. Did they think the province of Quebec is the same as Puerto Vallarta?
Oh, no. They don't think that it's nice and warm. They're not getting here and saying, no, it's frozen hell. We don't like it here. We're leaving. What they're doing is they're taking advantage of the fact that you can fly from Mexico to Canada as a Mexican national without a visa. So they get to Canada and then they just walk across the border back to the United States because New York is a sanctuary city. And that's a big, bold invitation from the rest of the world. And it's a little bit more livable. I just didn't realize that this was a thing that was on like a possibility for me.
My goodness.
I could just Sheila, walk across the border. I could just do that and try to resettle down there.
And I think in your neck of the woods, I believe you said in the morning meeting, it's minus 37 Celsius where you're living without the wind chill, and
no,
only
that was with
one
the
of your
wind chill.
vehicles started today.
That was yesterday. Nobody else's vehicle started because my daughter drives a diesel Jeep and she forgot to plug it in. So it was only my vehicle that started yesterday. It's minus 37 with the wind chill today. I think it's like minus 29 without. So.
Oh my goodness! I just shudder to think of my Green Goblin being up there.
Yeah, it would never run. It would be a little goblin ice cube. We should do an ad break, and then we've got another story to talk about, please.
Okay, then.
Thank you.
Canadians know the national anthem. They stand in silence to remember those who died for this country. But not every Canadian knows their rights and freedoms. The Freedom Passport will change that. It looks and feels like a Canadian passport, but contains the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms in a portable, easy-to-read format. The Freedom Passport. Order one for yourself and for all the freedom lovers that you love at freedompassport.ca.
I am speaking to you at a moment of grave crisis. when violent and fanatical men are attempting to destroy the unity and the freedom of Canada.
But after weeks of dangerous and unlawful activities, after weeks of people being harassed in their neighborhoods and small businesses forced to close,
As democracy flourishes in Canada,
we don't always agree, and that's okay.
because individual liberty is cherished in Canada.
Our government will always defend freedom of expression and freedom of peaceful assembly.
It has now been demonstrated to us by a few misguided persons
After evidence of increased ideologically motivated violent extremism activity across the country,
just how fragile a democratic society can be.
it became clear that local and provincial authorities needed more tools to restore order and keep people safe.
These are matters of the utmost gravity, and I want to tell you what the government is doing to deal with them.
The federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act.
The public's legitimate right to know why the government proclaimed an emergency and whether the actions it took were appropriate.
It is our view that there was no justification whatsoever to invoke the Emergencies Act.
It's so tough to watch. There's no reason for that. They were literally running the horses through the crowd.
The police came straight to me and he targeted me and he took his gun of tear gas and he actually shot me directly in my legs.
Was it worth invoking the Emergencies Act, ma'am, to trample on the rights and freedoms of Canadians?
Why do you think excessive honking means that the government should strip citizens away from their rights?
Our next and final witness is Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Order à l'ordre.
Well, Sheila, two things about those ads. One is, I hope one day Trudeau on Trial is more than a documentary title. And no, I don't mean Trudeau on Trial at that sham Emergencies Act inquiry where the fix was in from the get-go. And the Freedom Passport, I love that thing. And, I can't help but think, Sheila, as you know, in certain circles, I'm speaking about the left. Oh, actually, I'm also speaking about Larry Fine, Jean Charest, who ran as the Conservative leader, who look upon freedom as the new F-bomb, if you will. Jean Charest, in that open letter to the Sun, in that desperate Hail Mary just before the convention, he actually said, Sheila, freedom is overrated. Can you imagine? Freedom is overrated. Freedom, I would argue, is the most basic human right, period. If you're not free, you're a slave. And it is just so sad that people, especially those on the left, look at freedom, as I said, like it's the new F word. And the display of the Canadian flag, because I talked to, the Freedom Convoy protesters, and a lot of them drive pickups with a hockey stick with the Canadian flag mounted on it. And they tell me not a day goes by when some stranger in a car pulls up alongside of them and gives them the raised middle finger, right? Imagine that, Sheila. A Canadian flag on display by a Canadian on a Canadian road, and another Canadian considers that to be a symbol of hate speech. Is this not just appalling to you?
Well, and I think those Canadians that roll up and give you the finger for having the Canadian flag, they're on a little bit too much mainstream media, because I think they haven't reasonably come up with that idea on their own. You've just seen it repeated and pushed in the mainstream media over and over again, that the Canadian flag is a new symbol of Nazism. So when you roll up and see the Canadian flag, if you're somebody who's been looking to punch a Nazi your entire life, but you've never punched anybody or actually seen a Nazi because the supply does not meet the demand, when you see that Canadian flag, now's your chance to tell that so-called Nazi exactly what you think of them. And so that's why they do it. And it's probably the most effort those people are going to be putting in the last year into making the world a better place, is giving somebody the finger at a light. By the way, though, if people want tickets to Trudeau on Trial, we've got one more in-person showing. You can get tickets TrudeauOnTrial.com. It's March 8th, being hosted by my good friends at Church in the Vine, Pastor Rodney and Tracy Fortin. Those two stood up to the Alberta government and received an $80,000 fine for shooing away the inspectors during church services who were wandering around like lemmings, even in the children's room. So we love to support them, and they just believe in taking a stand for free speech and free expression. But the good news is we've beeped all the F-bombs in this out of respect for the church. So this is a family-friendly event. So, and it's a very affordable price point. I think it's $14 all in, and you get a pop and a
Oh, I don't know, Sheila.
chips,
I think the most ardent churchgoer might drop an F-bomb when it comes to Justin Trudeau. And by the way,
you know I have.
And one last point on that. Efren and I on Monday, Family Day, we went to Family Fringy Day at a farm somewhere between Hamilton and Cambridge. And it was basically to commemorate the first anniversary of the Freedom Convoy. Some of the vehicles that were at the Freedom Convoy were at this farm, like the iconic crane with that giant Canadian maple leaf. And, and Christine Anderson showed up, was very generous to give us a 25-minute long interview. And, it was bittersweet, Sheila, because you would think that if you're going to do a commemoration of this convoy, it would be on Wellington Street in Ottawa. But we know the repercussions, don't we? Those trucks would be immediately towed away, even if it was just for a few hours of display. Yep. People would be fined, maybe roughed up, bank accounts frozen. I'm just saying that when it comes to freedom of expression under the Trudeau Liberals, yeah, you're free to express yourself, but do it on private property, because we don't even recognize public streets as a venue for you to basically say your piece. And I thought that was bittersweet. But the other point I want to make, if the mainstream media came there and saw those people, they were the most down-to-earth, friendly, loving people. It was a great event, Sheila, and instead, I look at the local media. Cambridge Today, they had an interview with Liberal MP for Cambridge, Brian
Local
May.
busybodies, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And local busybodies, yeah.
And he was condemning it. He was wondering, what's the real agenda? And then he said, this I had to read 3 times because I couldn't believe it. One of the problems with the Freedom Convoy is that it was anti-government, anti-liberal, and anti-Justin Trudeau. And I'm thinking, really? Of course it was. But in his mindset,
and that's why they hate it.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be allowed. That should be illegal, according to a Liberal.
Exactly. This guy, Brian May, is such a trained SEAL backbencher that to say anything disturbing or impolite about Justin Trudeau, that should be illegal. That should be consigned to private property and off the public street. What an absolute disgrace. And he also said Christine Anderson does not represent Canadian values. I would like a Liberal in 2023 to describe what Canadian values is, Sheila, because it seems that one of them right now is censorship.
Yeah. By the way, I had a very nice night with Christine Anderson at a wrestling event in Calgary last
I was so
Friday.
jealous.
A Dungeon Wrestling, it's a Hart family promotion. And so I was there, naturally. And then I turn around and Christine Anderson's there. I'm like, is all of my worlds colliding right now? All of them just in a big mashup with like politics, anti-Trudeau sentiment, and wrestling all in one place over a Coors Light? Yes, indeed. That did happen to me.
Sheila, I'm so envious, but I think you missed an opportunity. I would have talked to the people running the wrestling card and see if there was a way to get Christine Anderson in the ring to, body slam a heel. And because I think the place would explode, right?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. But here's an item near and dear to your heart, Sheila. You posted a written piece, I think, 2 days ago on this. Man charged with murder. Oh, my goodness. Was this somebody wearing trouble on his shirt? Was this a drug deal gone bad? No, he was the victim of a home invasion in which he and his mother were being threatened by multiple thugs. What else are you supposed to do? You defend yourself, I should think. Sheila, this is appalling. I want you to tell the viewers So much for castle domain laws, because as far as I'm concerned, when you get to your home, the race is over. This is the finish line. This is your final sanctuary. If they bust down the door, you have no. I know in my home, I would grab anything at my disposal: a baseball bat, a knife. I don't have guns, and I would defend my family with lethal force. I applaud this man for sending this thug to the great hereafter. Why is it the Crown thinks he's public enemy number one with a murder charge?
Well, that's interesting. So let's go back a little. So Ali Mian, and he immediately lawyered up, wise guy. 22 years old. He's charged with murder after defending himself in what is very clearly a home invasion. Now, the reasons the people were there invading his home, those are a bit more gray, but I don't really actually think they matter. So he's charged with second-degree murder. His lawyer is the only guy speaking to media. He told reporters that his client's innocent. Naturally, it was a home invasion, intruders in his house. They were armed, dangerous, and he protected himself and his mother. Now, the guy was dead on the scene when the cops showed up. The man is a registered firearms owner, and his gun was legally obtained. That's an important point here. And he, according to his lawyer, used his gun legally against an armed intruder. His intention, however, was not to kill the intruder, at least according to his lawyer, and he only shot at him once. He's just a really good shot. So good for him. There's a second man there, by the way, so it was a team of two invaders. The second guy got the message that the first guy didn't. And he was arrested at the scene and charged with break and enter and unauthorized possession of a firearm. So the bad guys had the legal gun and not I don't know if he's a good guy, but he's a good guy in this instance. Now, I've heard rumors that this is gang related. I don't know if that's true or not. And as I said earlier, I don't think that matters, because if you break into somebody's house with intent to kill them, they have a right to defend their life with lethal force. And if you break into my house, that's the promise I'm making to you. Because I'm not going to assume the benevolence of a home invader. I'm not going to assume that when they break into my house with myself and my daughters at home, because my son, who's a grown man, has moved out, my husband works away. I'm not going to assume that they're just here for my camera, my computer equipment, maybe my TV. I'm not going to assume that. I'm going to assume that they're here for nefarious reasons. I'm not going to assume the benevolence of the person who's here on my property illegally. And in the country, Canada is bad. Alberta remains one of the better places for you to shoot a bad guy inside of your house. It wasn't always that way, but things are changing rapidly here.
That's right. And, Sheila, here's my question I would say to the Crown. Is that what was I supposed to do? They have broken into my house. It reminds me of that great scene in Aliens, that fantastic James Cameron 1986 film, Sheila, where the colonial Marines go into the alien hive on that distant planet for a so-called bug hunt. And it's noted that there's a nuclear reactor nearby, and one of the wayward shells might cause a catastrophe. So the sergeant orders the Marines to holster their weapons, and one of the Marines says back to the sergeant, "What are we supposed to use? Harsh language?" I mean, really, that's the same thing here. I don't know how old his mother is, but if your answer is, well, and I once had this said on a show, a Sun News show, Sheila, by Marianne Mead Ward, who has gone on to become the mayor of Burlington. There was a home invasion story, and lethal force or semi-lethal force was used. And I said, what were they supposed to do? And she said, well, you and the kids, you run out the back door. You hop the fence. No. Like I said earlier, once you are in your home, a man's home is his castle. That's it. There's no more running to do. And so I have no sympathy whatsoever that this thug is now deceased because of his actions. Even if this guy, even if the gunman has a allegedly sordid past, doesn't matter. I
don't even know if that's true. It doesn't matter. You still have, We're not having gangsters carry out extrajudicial killings on each other. That's not how society works. And if you are excusing or advocating for this guy to be charged because of something he may or may not have done, and again, this is just rumors, in the rest of his life, then why do we even have a court system? We'll just let the gangsters kill each other and they'll do street justice. If that's what we're for, careful what you wish for. Now, let's go to Justin Trudeau, and then I'll talk about...
before we do, Sheila, if you might indulge me for this, because just to show you how insane our castle domain laws are here.
Yeah, let's finish up on Ontario first before I tell you how good it is in Alberta. So
100%.
Yes.
A decade ago, when I was gainfully employed at the Sun News Network, my first video, I think it might have been my best video. I guess I peaked too early, but it was about...
We all did.
It was about the saga of a restaurateur who got the nickname the Spice Man. If you can imagine, folks, he is being, his restaurant's being broken into, his vehicle is being broken into, over and over and over again. He is consistently victimized. And one time he caught the thug red-handed, and he didn't use a gun, he didn't use a knife, he didn't use a baseball bat. He threw spice at him. Guess who got charged by the Toronto Police Service? Yes, the Spice Man. Let's roll that video. And some spices, he confronted the thief and called the police. But get a load of this. Police officers here at 14 Division, not only did they let the thief go, they charged Mr. Poilievre with assault and using a nauseous substance. Mr. Poilievre, you see, has been nicknamed the Spice Man because it was his use of spice that thwarted the bandit in the first place. So, as a primer, let's just see how effective spice deterrence is. What I suggest first is to, fend off the thief with something light, like garlic, There. Now, see, just do a little like that, sort of in the mouth area. Rosemary's a fantastic spice.
Oh my God, you have a whole stir.
Oh, Bob's your uncle. And see, there you go. This is mustard seed. This is where the mustard you get at the ballpark comes from. And there you go. Look at that. Fantastic. Oh, pepper. See, you put a little pepper on. There you go. We got to go to the nuke. We got to go to the cayenne pepper, brother. So, thief, get away from me. Stop victimizing me. The police aren't on their way because they don't believe in upholding the law against honest citizens. Ha! 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 We're teaching citizens how to defend themselves with spice because Mr. Poilievre was, I think, charged for defending his property. So we thought we'd, do a little demonstration. What do you think about that?
What I think right now, gentlemen, is that this is not appropriate.
Why is that?
Look at it. It's not appropriate. And you need to not bring that so close to my face.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
So why is it not appropriate?
Because first, it's obstructing the sidewalk. All right?
Oh, really?
So I'm going to ask you to move that, please, from the sidewalk. And
well, what about parsley? Is parsley appropriate for a thief?
I'm not going to get into this with you. I'm not going to do that.
How about mustard?
I'm not going to get into that with you.
Okay.
You know what? That's why we have the court.
What about garlic? Is garlic?
We have the court system, and let's let the charges play out in the court and see what the court system has to say. What I am asking you to do now,
rosemary. What about rosemary?
You, sir, is to take.
I got some other ones. Hold on a second.
You know what? You're not even trying
What
to.
about peri-peri?
You're not even listening. You're not even listening. No, sir, you're not. You're not listening.
No, but you never
and you're not.
I can relate to her.
I told you I wasn't going to discuss that. I was very clear on that.
Well, okay.
I said
what about,
that I would let that would go through the court
what
systems
about cinnamon?
as it should probably go. And you're having a hard time understanding me, sir.
Okay.
Is
bacon bits.
Is this yours?
It's actually not mine, but I borrowed it.
Thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
All right, sir. I'm going to take that as abandoned property.
Oh,
my.
my.
That's too bad.
Oh,
all right. Can you please keep that? Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. Is she under arrest or? What about cayenne pepper, officer? Would red pepper be appropriate?
Oh my God.
Watch her buttocks. Well, here I am picking up the pieces. Too bad she left so quickly because I'd like to give her the finger.
That's good.
Sheila, that'll never get old.
No.
But, the point is, this was some person, a restaurateur, a law-abiding, tax-paying citizen, defending himself with the most benign substance imaginable, some spice, and he got charged. I can't even remember. I think the charges were eventually dropped. But that just shows you how it's like reward the takers, penalize the makers. That seems to be the theme right now, even when it comes to a life and death situation in one's own house. Unbelievable. And by the way, I want to give you a little shout out. I heard you on the Richard Serrett show on the electric radio, 960 AM. And Richard's, anyone in the GTA,
yes.
The radio universe is a wasteland. As I've often said, with the hosts that are on terrestrial radio right now, if they don't get off the air soon, I'm going to stop breathing it. But I'll tell you, Richard Serrett from 4 to 6, Monday to Friday, and Mark Petroni from 1 to 3, you will hear radio that you will not hear anywhere else. It's like the golden days of talk radio before everything became politically correct and woke and pro Justin Trudeau. So please, 960 AM, give it a listen. It is, and if you're out of the GTA, you can stream it through your computer. Yep. Petroni and Serrett are doing amazing work.
Yeah, really. I just keep going on Richard's show to talk about conservative things as an audition, so that one day maybe he'll have me on his Strange Planet show where he is the Canadian Art Bell, and I just want to go on there and talk about cryptids. But I don't know.
You want to talk about what?
About me? Cryptids, Bigfoot, Frogman, the Wendigo, those sorts of things.
I have a lot of love in my heart for the Wendigo. In any event, you wanted to move on to more Trudeau nonsense, I believe.
No. Let's talk about how different it is in Alberta if you shoot a dirtbag in your house. So we got to dial back the clock a little. I think it's 2017, 2018-ish. Eddie Maurice. He's on his property outside of Calgary. I think he's home alone with his toddler daughter.
By the way, not the Eddie Murray.
Eddie Maurice. Maurice.
I misheard, sorry.
Yes. So I think he's from Okotoks, so just south of Calgary.
Okay.
And a burglar comes on his property. Now, Eddie's at home with his little daughter. He's not going to presume the benevolence of this guy. So he grabs his gun and wings the guy in the arm. Doesn't kill him, doesn't anything, just puts him in a sling for a little bit, blows apart his elbow. Good. But as it turns out, guess who gets charged with unlawful use, dangerous discharge, aggravated assault? It's Eddie Maurice. The guy who's on his property gets the lesser charges of mischief and breach of conditions. You see, this guy was already out on bail for other things when he was on Eddie Maurice's property to do absolutely no good. And as you know, in Canada, so often the process is the punishment. And so Eddie gets dragged through the court system almost up until trial. And then charges are dropped because there was no likelihood of conviction. Of course not. He fired a warning shot. He could have hit that guy at center mass. He didn't. But then the guy who he shot sues him in court because he was injured on Eddie's property. Now, to Jason Kenney's credit, he did two things here. He pitched into Eddie Maurice's legal fund. I think he gave him $100 or $500 as just a private citizen to a private citizen. And that was before he was premier. And then when he was premier, he changed the law so that if you are injured in the commission of a crime, you can sue the property owner for your injuries. So that got changed. Now, fast forward to 2021, Red Deer, early morning hours. Guy breaks into a guy's house. Guy runs, gets his firearm, because can't store them near the bed. So he runs, gets his firearm, and I think it was fired one shot, killed the guy instantly. Didn't even get charged. Beautiful. In Alberta. So that's how quickly things can change. The sentiment can change. And Alberta remains one of the freer, more sane places in this country when it comes to dealing with citizens and their right to defend their own property and themselves. But Ontario, you're just awful.
And Sheila, you said something really important. I just want to take a bit of a deeper dive into it. Eddie Maurice, with that incident, you called the process being the penalty. And by that, I assume you mean the amount of time that was robbed from him going through this criminal trial process and the amount of money in legal fees, maybe six figures. I don't know. Maybe you know more about the case. But certainly tens and tens of thousands of dollars. And he's an innocent man. He was defending himself. I'm assuming that's what you mean by the process is the penalty.
That's exactly it. So months and months and months, I think it was up to a year, that he was sort of dragged through the process, crushing financially, the stress that it caused on his family, dealing with this, court dates in and out of court. And all he was doing was trying to protect his home and his baby daughter.
Incredible. Well, I'll tell you one thing. I call him as I see him. And for ex-Premier Kenney, he sure did the right thing. What was it, 2017 when he brought in I mean, how was that even a thing to begin with? You're the felon. You get shot in self-defense, and he's got the grounds for a personal injury lawsuit. How, Sheila, what judge in his right mind would even hear that? It's so preposterous.
You know what? And that's the thing. And what sort of ambulance chasing lawyer would take that, Like, well, I guess somebody who's willing to just enrich themselves for any reason whatsoever. I think we have one thing left on the list. Efron informs me in my ear that we have a bunch of chats that we'll get to. So thank you so much. And thank you for those who are going to stick around to hear us read those. But I just want to touch on this one thing because it is in the list of things in the Rumble and YouTube description. And again, the theme of the show today seems to be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. And as it turns out, once you try to blackmail Google returns in kind. So as it turns out, and this is in response to Justin Trudeau's censorship laws, Google has started blocking news content for some Canadians in response to the latest government censorship bill. I think this is C11, and this is the one that boosts or downranks Canadian content based on whether or not the government finds it reputable. So you need the government stamp of approval before you're shown certain news content. So this is the Rebel News bill, I would say. And so Google just said, okay, fine. We're just not even going to bother showing Canadian stuff because we're not going to sort through it all for the Justin Trudeau checkmark. So they're testing how they can basically comply with this bill, but also punish us for even bringing it in.
And Sheila, the question arises, during this Google test, what type of news content were they censoring, I guess?
I said C18, but it's or C11, but it's C18, and that's C18. the online news act. So to be clear, that would require digital giants like Google and Meta, which is Facebook, Instagram, to compensate Canadian media companies for republishing their content on their platform. So this is just a bailout in another way. So Justin Trudeau is basically forcing Google and Meta, Facebook, YouTube, to bail out failing media companies because if content is shared to those sites, they're supposed to pay the media companies for, I guess, sharing it. It really doesn't make a lot of sense because, like driving traffic to the site by sharing it boosts your ad revenue. They're already getting money that way, but it's not enough for these failing companies to survive. So instead, what Google did is that it limited access to news content to roughly 4% of its Canadian users as it assesses possible responses to the bill. So they're trying to figure out what to do here. And so they tested it on 4% of their Canadian users. So the Discover feature, if you're using the Google app on your phone, on Android devices, it limited some of the Canadian content that would come up or content to Canadian users. So all types of news content are being affected, and it's going to run for 5 weeks. So the content that's affected is that created by Canadian broadcasters and newspapers. So Google is censoring Canadian content in response to Justin Trudeau's attempts to blackmail them.
So there's no, I guess, Sheila, bias. It's just if it's Canadian content, we will just block it to be on the safe side. Is that the strategy Google is using right now?
Yes, so far. So,
gotcha. So what does that mean, by the way, Sheila? If I was going on to Google, another made-up word, and I was, say I wanted to find a CBC or CTV report, what's going to happen? Just nothing comes up in the search engine?
Yeah, like you just won't be able to find it.
Wow.
I think if you have the link directly and you cut and paste the link, then you can find it. But it's just undiscoverable right now for 4% of Canadian users, and they're blocking Canadian content. So you know what? Good.
Yeah, somewhere Peter Mansbridge and Rosemary Barton weep.
Yeah.
But you know what? You said something too. This is, the goal of this bill is all about the tech giants bailing out failing Canadian media companies. I thought that was the job of the federal government, Sheila.
Yeah. They're so terrible and so insufferable that they need separate bailouts. One, a government mandated private sector one, and then one directly from the taxpayer. And it's my mistake. C11 is the one that requires the downranking and upranking of certain media content, and this is the bailout. Is C18.
And you know something? I can tell you, Sheila. I think I'm the only one in the company with an actual journalism degree. I graduated from the Ryerson School of Journalism in 1984. Of course, it's not Ryerson, it's something else. It sounds like a subway stop now. But the point is, I think most of my professors are probably all gone to the great hereafter. But I will tell you one thing. Whether they were left, right, or center, and this is from an early 80s perspective, they would all be appalled at this kind of censorship. They would all be appalled that government is giving millions and millions, in the case of the CBC, more than $1 billion to, as you said, prop up failing media companies. It's an abhorrent conflict of interest. I mean, imagine I was covering a meatpacking plant where, there was an outbreak of lethal bacteria. And the guy owning the plant said, "Hey, Dave, thanks for coming over. Here's a couple of grand, just to pay your expenses." No, you can't accept that. That is going to taint the report. So the idea that the federal government buying off journalists, which are supposed to cover the federal government, you don't think that's going to have an effect? You don't think there's going to be self-censorship? You don't think there's going to be journalists going, "Ooh, this is a real hot story. Again, another Trudeau scandal." But you know what? I kind of like a steady paycheck in a sunset industry. I don't think I'm going to break this story. This is appalling, Sheila.
Well, and, there seems to be a bit of a battle royale squaring off here between the feds and the people who control the world, like Google and Facebook. So they're basically going to war over who gets preferential treatment in the search engine right now, and who gets to control it. Because frankly, I think they would both promote the same news organizations. Frankly, they just don't, one doesn't like being told by the other that they're in charge and they're not. So it's, I think, like you're right. As Ezra said, it's like the Spider-Mans pointing at each other. Like that meme where the two identical Spider-Mans are pointing at each other. That's what's happening here. So Google and Meta want to manipulate the algorithms in their own way. And the Canadian government says, no, we want to tell you how to manipulate those algorithms. And as it turns out, they would probably both promote CTV, CNN, CBC, and downrank people like us and Fox News, which we know they already do. I think they're battling over who gets to be in charge of it all.
Unbelievable. Sheila, I know you want to get to the Super Chats. I think we should go to our last ad break.
Yes.
Otherwise, Efren's going to be very upset with me, and I don't like that. So, folks, just keep it here. We're going to run an ad, and then we'll be back with your comments.
Canadians know the national anthem. They stand in silence to remember those who died for this country. But not every Canadian knows their rights and freedoms. The Freedom Passport will change that. It looks and feels like a Canadian passport, but contains the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms in a portable, easy-to-read format. The Freedom Passport. Order one for yourself and for all the freedom lovers that you love at freedompassport.ca.
If you want to look good and shine like me, you can do so at our store. Go to ribbonnewstore.com. On this website, you have so much different style to wear, as this one, my favorite one, Justin Castro. With my code Alexa10, you will have 10% off on your next purchase. So don't hesitate, go now and look so good like me.
I love that shirt, Sheila. You know it's our #1 bestseller, and I keep one in my bag in the offhanded chance I can finally scrum Justin Trudeau. I want to get his reaction to that image. That would be priceless, I'm sure. Or maybe then I'm going to be charged with a hate crime, have my bank account frozen, and put in the penalty box as in forever. But I love that shirt. And I got to tell you, I don't care if you're left, right, or center. You look at those two images. Can you tell the difference? I mean, I'm being serious. I'm not being funny. I'm not being mean to Justin Trudeau. The resemblance is uncanny, Sheila.
As Ezra said on an interview with Breitbart Radio over the weekend, the timeline adds up. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but the timeline adds up. And a lot of, I think, Trudeau Sr.'s affinity for Castro was just to spite the Americans and their embargo, just to stick it in the eye of our American friends who had come to our aid despite our ignorant prime ministers and their dislike of the Americans for no good reason whatsoever.
Is that Maggie looking on in awe at the baby?
I don't know. I think so.
Okay. How many surnames
does she have? It was not a good-looking baby. Six, I think. Six, I think she has. But Justin Trudeau was not a good-looking baby. Like, in a lot of babies, they do look like Winston Churchill. But he was not a good-looking baby.
Oh, you're walking on a minefield there, Sheila. You know, because I hearken back to a Johnny Carson truism, you know, the late great host of The Tonight Show, back when late night TV was funny, actually, instead of political. And what he said is that when you get a photograph of a newborn baby, let's be honest, most of them are really quite ugly. But you can't possibly tell a new mother that her baby is ugly. So when she hands you the picture and says, "What do you think?" You don't want to insult the mother, but you want to be true to yourself at the same time. So the words you say, Sheila, is this: "Now that's a baby."
Yeah. What was it on Seinfeld? They called the baby breathtaking.
Baby what?
Do you remember? The baby was breathtaking. There was an ugly baby. Somebody had a really ugly baby, and they're like, "Oh, that baby's breathtaking." Anyway.
Okay.
Let's get to some of these chats.
Yes.
Okay. We've got $5 from Cheryl Don V. Is there any implications of Canadian soldiers training Ukrainian soldiers in the Ukraine? A friend's son called his mom, who's in the Canadian military, and said, "Mom, I'm fine. I'm in Ukraine, but I can't tell you anything else." I don't know anything about that. I know that normally we don't train with them, although I think there has been some history of. But we regularly train with NATO partners, like the Polish soldiers right next door. If anybody has more information, I'd love to know. But we're also not opposed to sending our old junk to the Ukraine for them to fight with, while leaving our soldiers with absolutely nothing worse off than having the old junk.
And Sheila, I can tell you this, regardless of what side you're on with this conflict, it's one thing to send hundreds of millions of dollars, which Trudeau is doing. It's one thing to send our military equipment, or AKA the old junk, as you call it. I don't want to see a single Canadian lad die in Russia or the Ukraine over this conflict. That is a bridge too far for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's called Operation Unifier. It's Canadian Armed Forces military training and capacity building mission in support of the armed forces in Ukraine. It predates the war. It goes back to 2015. It was done at the request of the Canadian government. And of course, in 2022, in response to the Russian invasion, it was expanded and extended until March 2025. So since the start of Operation Unifier, the Canadian Armed Forces has trained over 35,000 Ukrainian military and security personnel in battlefield tactics and advanced military skills. So it's under direct training by CAF members and who work directly with the armed forces of Ukraine. Canadians act as advisors and mentors, as well as assisting in developing courses. So it goes beyond Ukraine, though. Operation Unifier is part of a multinational coordination cell, so the MCC, and that planning, training, priorities happens among other partners such as Denmark, Lithuania, the aforementioned Poland, Slovakia, Sweden, and Ukraine, United Kingdom, and the United States.
But you know what, Sheila? A training initiative, that's one thing. My point of view, and I'd love to hear your opinion, do you want to see Canadian soldiers, boots on the ground, on the battlefield, becoming potential casualties over this conflict? I simply do not.
Well, here's what I can tell you. So following the donation of those old rusty junker Leopard tanks to Ukraine, we've sent Canadian trainers there to train them in the use of those tanks, hopefully in the maintenance of them too. It's taking place in Poland, however. It started on February 7th.
Oh, I think Sheila might be frozen. Oh, there you go.
Am I back? Okay.
Yep.
How many people are deployed as part of Operation Unifier? 370, including 170 on the ground to support the training of Ukrainian troops. We've got 40 combat engineers in Poland, 20 armored soldiers to Poland as well to assist in training Ukrainian crews there. To the UK. I'm sorry. So there's 170 CAF that they're not on the ground in Ukraine, but they're in the UK to support the training of Ukrainian troops there. And then allies around Europe, training on military aid, deployment of resources, medic aid. So anyways, if you go on to canada.ca, it's the Department of National Defense. And if you look up Operation Unifier, you will find all the details there. So there you go.
I wonder where those secondhand UK subs are these days, Sheila. Are they just rusted away into oblivion? Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Pig in a poke.
Yeah, I think they're still in the dry dock in Halifax, probably.
It's a tourist attraction. But we have one in the West Edmonton Mall still that functions, right?
No, we had, I think, 2 or 3. There's a point at which we had more functional submarines in the mall than the Canadian military had. I don't know what happened to those. They took them out. Now that's like Sea Life Caverns, and there's like a dolphin show and stuff there now. But I don't know what happened to those subs, but they were functional, which is better than what the Canadian military could say. Medic Deb, this is our friend from the other day who was so generous with her donations. Says, time to build a fence at Roxham Road. Trudeau will do nothing, sleeves rolled up or not. Yeah, when he rolls up his sleeves, it's like he's doing that blackface, but for blue collar people, you know, where he's just like, I'm just like one of you. I'm just wearing your culture as a costume. That's how I feel when he wears a cowboy hat. Get out of that. Get out of my culture.
It's like that Saturday Night Live character acting. And one other point about Roxham Road, why he's in no rush to fix this, and I discussed this with Drea yesterday, Sheila. I think the unspoken agenda is all about changing Canada's demographics. The idea of you let in the illegal aliens and their families, and then you get their family members abroad over again. And the quid pro quo is, remember, folks, every 4 years, you make a little X on the ballot for Team Red, and Bob's your uncle. I really think that's what's going on.
There's one way the Conservatives can fix this, though, is to actually communicate to these people what conservative values are, because so often people from the developing world are social conservatives. And we just do a bad job in telling them how crazy the liberals are and how their values of family and faith and being left alone, those are actually conservative values. And so the Conservatives really have to step up their game with regard to New Canadian outreach. Again, I don't know why I'm sending so much love Jason Kenney's way today, but he was actually very good at that in his time in Stephen Harper's cabinet. He was, what do they call him? Minister Curry in a hurry, something like that. Like he was to point out that he was everywhere. I say this quite a bit. I once saw a Chinese grandma jump a table just so she could hug him.
Well, Jason Kenney, I think, Sheila, is the political version of a certain soft drink, which is to say there's Jason Kenney Classic, and then there's new Jason Kenney.
Yeah.
Not so
and
good.
The new was bad. Yeah. Medic Deb also gives us $5. Can Canadians then go back and forth freely? Cheaper eggs, cheaper milk, cheaper beer, taxi to get them? Will the RCMP help me carry my groceries? Yeah. Yeah, wouldn't that be great?
And man, that's one, even with the exchange, you're going to save money on milk and all dairy products for that matter, turkey, chicken, and eggs. What's the commonality? Oh, yeah, that Soviet-style economic system known as supply management. Probably many of our viewers saw that video last month, Sheila, of a farmer who exceeded his quota and was literally pouring perfectly good milk down the drain. How despicable. All designed to keep supply short, prices high.
What do they call Canadians at the It's Bellingham, Washington at their Costco. They call us the Red Plague because we swoop in, buy up all the dairy and eggs, and then go back home. Buy up all the cheese and go back home because you can save so much money on a quick cross-border trip if you live near the border, which I don't.
Absolutely.
C.H. Douglas gives us $5. We need a discussion of the original Douglas social credit monetary reform. I'm already skeptical, not to be confused with the CCP counterfeit. DSC was supported by Elon Musk's Canadian grandfather, Joshua Haldeman. I don't know anything about it, but I'm already skeptical. Anything that attributes my monetary and financial wealth to my social hygiene, I already don't like it because that will always be judged by the person in charge. Maybe I'm misunderstanding you and maybe I need to do more Googling. Bodin Nilsson gives us $5 just to thank you for all you do from Sweden. Yes, you have a very Swedish sounding name. Bodin Nilsson. Thanks, us from Sweden.
Thank you.
Adam Ottawa gives us $5. This one's for David. David, you should redo that video with the mannequin more in the shape of Busty Lemieux.
Well, alas and alack, Adam, the big boss man, Ezra, he's told me he wants me to retire those boobs. And really, when you think of it, Sheila, given the latest news about Busty Lemieux, the New York Post did some incredible reporting. First, they exposed him as a male when he's not in the classroom. That's a really funny transition. Why does he only become a she when he's in front of minors? But the following day, the Post had an even bigger scoop, folks, if you haven't heard. Lemieux sat down with the journalist and the photographer in Burlington, and I think they thought this was going to be the come clean moment, that you got me, game's over. Oh no! Turns out those Z-cup breasts, those are not silicone strap-ons. Those are real mammary glands. He suffers from a very rare condition. He started developing at 39 as a biological male. Here's the thing, Sheila, say that's true. Say he suffers from this rare condition, which apparently 300 people in the world have suffered from, all of them biological females, according to the Cleveland Clinic. But even if that's true, what are the odds that his breasts are the same size and shape as my fake silicone breast that I bought from eBay for $500? I mean, that's uncanny. They're the same size and shape. The nipples are the same length. How do you explain that? There's something for the Richard Serrett mystery show to explore.
I nearly dry heaved when you talked about the nipples being the same length. As I said in the morning meeting, David, if this stuff has an onset later on in life, I guess there's hope for me yet. But how does any of that explain the bike shorts and the wig and the rest of it? I mean, he's a BS artist, complete and total BS artist anyway. My friend Mike was like, see, Sheila, I was because he was firmly in the camp that this was trolling all along. But I still don't think he's trolling. I don't think he's legitimately trans. I think he's a fetishist weirdo is what I think. And he gets off on having the young men in his class look at his prosthetic boobs and his bike shorts. The bike shorts are the part that really get me, because I don't want to be crass, but he's clearly not tucking anything here. He likes everybody looking at his genitals.
But Sheila, this is very important. He is not trans. Who says that? He says that. In the interview with the Post, he said he's not transgender. And remember, this was the rationale for the Halton District School Board going to bat for him, where we're trans friendly. He says he's intersex, whatever that means. Sure. And you're right. Say this was a biological female with breasts that size. Here's the thing. Wouldn't you wear a brassiere? Granted, I don't think that's something off the rack. It's probably a custom job. But and for the bike shorts and also, if you look at him, he's breaking every rule, shop etiquette rule in the book. Long sleeves, long hair, jewelry, even those breasts coming so close to that saw. So what's the explanation there? We did a little piece a week ago Monday.
Look at those road cones are rubbing right up against the saw.
Oh my gosh. And I'll tell you this much, Busty Lemieux better not go skydiving with Canada's foremost conservative porn star, because what with all these Chinese balloons flying over our Dominion, he might get shot down by mistake.
Yikes. Just what a bunch of baloney, by the way.
Look at that.
Oh my God. See, did he start off with his wig on or not?
Yeah, the wig flew off. Yeah, for a shop teacher, he's kind of unaware of, the rules pertaining to physics and gravity and what have you. Never thought that jumping out of an airplane, I don't know how fast you go as a skydiver, but yeah, if anything's not tied down, it's going.
I want to see every photo of that person wearing those boobs, because you and I both know that those things come up quite high on the neck, right?
Yeah. You tried them on, if memory serves.
I did indeed. I just wanted to see how the other side lives.
And remember, Sheila Gunreed, if our relationship ever goes sour, I've got those images on my phone.
Yeah, I want to, maybe I'll do a forensic examination later, because I definitely don't have a million other things to do. I want to look at the neckline, because he says those are real. They're not. And even if they were, if this was a medical condition that presented itself, wouldn't you have a surgery to fix it? Instead of just getting pink tops and a wig, which is apparently his solution to his alleged medical condition, which I don't believe is true. But I want to zoom in on the neck on all of them, because that neck is silicone. And if you look real carefully, you can see the line.
Yep.
So that's what I'm going to do with part of my day to prove him a liar.
And you know what,
which
Sheila?
we already know to be true.
With this guy, the question arises, what do you do for an encore? I'll tell you what it is. He'll go to the HDSB and he'll say, I've got a bun in the oven. I'm going on mat leave. And they will accommodate him. Busty Lemieux actually runs the Halton District School Board. This fetish king can do anything. He'll tell those trustees to jump. They'll say how high. And meanwhile, go to Renfrew, Ontario. You have Josh Alexander standing up for Catholic values and scientific values, for that matter, taking a stand against some creep male student going into the girls' room and being a peeping Tom. He gets suspended and then later arrested. What a world we're in, Sheila Gunn-Reid.
Yeah, and people like this weirdo teacher, they already have teachers' unions on their side. The school board is actually there to represent the values of the community, the parents, and the students. That's their job. They're not supposed to go to bat for fetishist weirdos. Let the union do that. They love to do that. Let them do it. But the school board is supposed to be the fail-safe to protect the students. See, I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
Oh, no. Look at the nose. Look at the eyes, Sheila. And also, I reached out to the reporter with the New York Post, Jack, and he said that the male was driving the exact same make, model, and color, a Mazda automobile, and even more incriminating, was holding the same shopping bags as a male as he was as a female, and he was able to validate the story with 2 independent eyewitnesses. You know what, Sheila? That's good enough for me. That's your man right there.
Oh, I'm going to be zooming in all day on my computer because does he have nail polish on as a male? He has nail polish on as a female.
You know what? I can't tell from this distance.
It's hard as hell to get off too, by the way. So I don't know. And I'm going to be looking to cross reference those. What are those? Those dad runners look like New Balance, maybe.
The shoes are different.
Yeah, but I'm sure that if it's a dude, you guys, I know for a fact you guys have like 3 pairs of shoes in your repertoire. That's all you ever have. And so those shoes will have turned up somewhere else because there's no way in hell a lady's shoe is fitting him.
100%. But, wow.
I've just turned into Matlock for the rest of the day.
But Sheila, you mentioned, isn't this a union thing to stand up for insanity? I would argue right now with school boards and teachers unions across North America, the boards and the unions are the same thing. They're interchangeable. They're all woke leftist progressives. Prove me wrong.
No, for sure. We should hurry up. We're half an hour over time, David.
Oh my goodness.
By the way, Adam Ottawa says you haven't aged a day since your Spiceman days.
Oh,
it's gonna be 10 years ago.
I bet you say that to all the girls, Adam. I have aged. Believe me, I've aged.
I feel like we've sucked the life out of Efron and Ezra, by the way. It is not good. I saw pictures of Efron when he joined the company. I'm like, did we? We've made your hair go gray. We've got C1 CAS. He knows I'm right, too. I know he's sitting there agreeing with me. C1 CAS gives us $5. The murder charges for self-defense were traditionally so that police could start an investigation. In Justin Trudeau's world, however, who knows? They don't necessarily have to charge you to start an investigation.
Well, you know what? We didn't have time, but super producer Efren did find an old clip where Justin Trudeau essentially said you do not have the right to self-defense. Isn't that wonderful, Sheila? Law-abiding, tax-paying citizens do not have the right to self-defense, but meanwhile, gangbangers are going through a revolving door in our court system, getting released without bail to commit more crime. What kind of perverse ideology does blackface subscribe to?
You know what? Let's show that clip, and I don't think it's from all that long ago. I think it's from this summer.
Okay.
And we have a culture where the difference is guns can be used for hunting or for sport shooting in Canada, and there are lots of gun owners, and they're mostly law-respecting and law-abiding. But you can't use a gun for self-protection in Canada. That's not a right that you have in the Constitution or anywhere else. If you try and buy a gun and say it's for self-protection, no, you don't get that. You get it for hunting. You can get it for sport shooting. You can take it to the range, no problem, as long as you go through our rigorous background checks. But there's a difference around.
Oh, but wait a minute, Sheila. You don't get that right, but he gets that right. He travels around in an armor SUV with RCMP agents packing heat for his protection. He's got that right, but the rest of us, it basically he's giving us the middle finger and saying, screw you.
Yeah, he offloads his self-defense to somebody else with a gun. Well, I can't afford a bodyguard. So what do? Am I supposed to engage in hand-to-hand combat with some dirtbag who breaks into my house? So what? So my daughters can see me murdered in front of them? Is that Justin Trudeau's Canada? I guess so.
And Sheila, let me correct you there with what you said. Even if you could afford a bodyguard, unlike the U.S., Canadian bodyguards, Canadian security guards can't carry firearms.
That's right.
Yeah. So rent the biggest guy you can find.
Yeah. Anyway, Fraser McBurney gives us $5. He's a Fight the Fines recidivist from Hamilton, Ontario. He says, at least there's some good news from Florida. You can now carry a concealed gun without a permit. This is
Love
true.
it.
Ron DeSantis. He's the leader of the free world currently.
What was it G. Gordon Liddy said about gun control? His version of gun control is keep both your hands on the weapon at all times.
Yeah. Keep your finger into the trigger guard. We've got Fraser again says how the West was won. There were more good guys with guns. And how Canada was settled. Canada was settled because people came with guns looking to harvest animals. We have a long tradition of firearms use. It's the reason we exist as a country. And so Justin Trudeau, while he remains in his cloistered bubble in Ottawa, the rest of us still live in that part of the country, that part of the world, and we haven't forgotten where we come from. To cancel guns is akin to canceling statues, pulling down statues to erase history. That's what it's like in some other parts of the country.
100%.
Yankee corrects us on the Florida issue, since Yankee lives in Florida. And he says,
oh, that's our Yankee?
Our Yankee, yeah. He says, it isn't true. They're looking to do it, but it hasn't passed yet. So this is Governor DeSantis moving in the right direction, but it's not quite formalized yet.
Thank you, Yankee.
Yeah.
His best quote ever in the morning meeting, Sheila, was, I got guns.
He's right, though. he's right.
And Yankee, I wouldn't say that very loudly and frequently in Canada. They'll come after you to check out your guns, believe me.
Yeah. That's why Americans think we don't have guns, is because we're scared to talk about it, because the government will come and kick in your door. They're always shocked by the number that there are more licensed firearms owners in Canada than play organized hockey. Americans are always shocked by that number, but it's like we have to keep it hush-hush because we're a culture of confiscation here too. Let's keep going. C1CAS $5. Rumor has it that Rosemary Barton has resigned from the CBC and has moved to Hollywood and is working as a stunt double for Miss Piggy.
Oh, geez. And your thoughts on that, Sheila?
I'm keeping them all to myself. It's Lent. I'm trying to be better for Lent, not give in to my worst impulses. Speaking of Florida, I was looking up the thing because I normally give up meat for Lent, for all of Lent, which is very difficult because I eat ultra low carb animal base. So I will be living off eggs and salmon and canned tuna for the next 40 days. But I was looking up the animals that I can eat. And according to the church, certain things that mammals that are aquatic, I can eat, and cold-blooded things. So frogs, turtles, alligators, crocodiles. You can't eat rats or rabbits, but you can eat muskrats because they're aquatic. They classify them as fish, and I can eat a beaver. So I was doing the math yesterday. I'm like, I can totally eat like a Florida coyote for the next 40 days, which is going to be hard. I'm going to be very miserable by the end of the week, which I think is the point.
What about the duck-billed platypus? We can put in a special request to Avi Yamini to bring one of those next time he comes here.
I really want to eat an endangered animal, so yeah.
Oh, that's right. You know, Lady Menzoid is still upset with you for saying that you want to eat a giant panda. And that's endangered. I think they're still endangered, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, because they're too stupid to live. They haven't adapted beyond eating bamboo, and the bamboo gives them digestive problems, so they don't thrive very well. They're really stupid, and I still regret that we didn't eat the pandas. Instead, we just gave them back to China. We should have eaten them. We should have had a big panda roast.
And you know what? When I was a kid in elementary school, I had this big book called Animals of Asia, and it was funny. There's the giant panda, and the reason why it's got giant in front of its name, because there's another one. There's another panda, and it was called, if you can believe it, Sheila, the lesser panda. But even political correctness has come into the animal kingdom, because the lesser panda, I now understand, is called the red panda. But when you
think of it, which is not a panda at all, by the way. I think it's like a dog type animal, from what I understand.
But probably smarter than the giant panda, yet they called it a lesser animal.
Actually, I think it's closely related to the raccoon. Don't ask me how I know this. I have no interest in eating it. Just putting that out there so everybody's clear. I don't want to eat a red panda. It's the black and white ones. I bet they taste like Oreos.
I know from the same book, the Asiatic wild ass is an endangered species. What do you think about that creature, Sheila Gunn-Reid?
I bet it is. Anyways, I think we're done. We're done.
Oh, thank goodness. Wonder if I'm going to get a memo later today. Anyways, Sheila, thank you so much for resuming your rightful role as the co-host of the Daily Roundup. And I want to thank Efren, our super producer behind the boards, everybody that tuned in, especially those that gave a donation. We don't take it out of your bank account direct deposit style like the government does for the mainstream media. We ask, and you can choose to give or not give. I think it's the most honest way of fundraising there is. We shall be back in this spot at 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. In the meantime, as always, folks, stay sane and stay safe.